As of this video, we've made over 210 hours of stories for the universe of GALAMORA. If you watched every session non-stop, you would have to watch for almost 11 days straight. Not everyone has time for that. So today, let me guide you on a journey through the true story of GALAMORA. In the beginning, 4 gods were created by beings known as the Outer Gods. These outer gods were manifestations of concepts such as creation, eternity, and chaos that couldn't inhabit the universe themselves. When reality came into existence, these beings formed 4 gods and tasked their creations with shaping reality on their behalf. Iverna, the goddess of life, was tasked with breathing life into all things before her brother Fate would guide them through time. She created many gods to hold dominion over the aspects of life. Among her most powerful children was Laverton, the goddess of instinct, who would bring emotion to sentient beings. Fate was known only by that name, Fate. He was tasked with writing out the lives of all things in existence and guiding them along the path he created. With his guidance, all life was given purpose and direction. With his sister Iverna, he created the planets and set them all into motion for eternity. But when fate created his children, they were his creations alone. His creations, such as Gamarand, the god of knowledge, would be the foundation of almost all magic wielded by the mortal races. Moros, the god of death, was tasked with severing the past from the present and giving his harvest back to his siblings so they might create something new. Moros created no gods of his own. Unlike his siblings, he was unbound by the laws of time and space and was content in his solitude. Together with his sister Iverna, they formed the breath of all living things. Interna, the goddess of chaos, brought free will to the universe. She alone possessed the ability to fundamentally alter reality beyond what any of her siblings could comprehend. It is said that all heroes are spawned from her will, and that the true fate of all heroes is to alter fate's plan for reality. After forming the early structure of reality, the siblings consecrated the material plane with the creation of the sun, the balance of all their powers as a beacon to all reality of their unity. As eons passed, the 4 of them worked to refine the planes of existence, until Iverna committed the first sin the reality had ever known. While the other gods gave shape to the world and put it into motion, Interna grew to resent her siblings and the reality they had made. Everything living, dead, or otherwise walked a set path from the moment of their creation to their death. Of all creation, she alone possessed free will, and this angered her. When Interna confronted her siblings, she severed Moros's head and mangled Iverna's body. The damage to Moros gave rise to undeath in all its forms. The damage to Iverna spawned horrific curses and madness that plagued all life. But her brother Fate was far more powerful than his siblings. Interna confronted Fate with the combined might of all her magic, but it only left Fate with a crack on his face that one of his eyes could be seen through. Interna's magic was so powerful that it shattered her body and mind into many separate entities. What's more, her magic did the same to the universe itself, as the cracks in space and time were filled by the astral sea, and the separation between timelines was created. The damage caused to Fate's body granted free will to the universe. However, because Fate's perfect form had been altered, the future could no longer be known with absolute certainty. Thus, all gods created by Fate could not serve their purpose as they were intended to. Interna's battle against her siblings began a new era of the universe, an era marked by the absence of the most powerful gods. As the fighting spread down to the lower gods, the most meaningful battle was between Gamarand, the god of knowledge, and his wife Laverton, the goddess of nature. Gamarand had been driven into a deep and intense paranoia when fate was scarred, because he could no longer know everything. In his paranoia, he attempted to undo the damage done by Interna by gathering the power of the lower gods. But his wife Laverton could see that he would only damage reality further. Their battle didn't last long. Once Laverton understood that her lover had placed his fear above their love, she unleashed her curse onto all sentient life and reality. In response, Gamarand damaged the boundary between the material plane and the plane of consciousness, giving birth to the stars. Releasing her curse caused Laverton to become bound to the base of a world tree. She was left a mindless husk of her former self. Gamarand, meanwhile, preserved his soul within the severed head of Moros on a distant planet's moon. The fighting between the lower gods continued until the gods were no longer the dominant power of GALAMORA. Around the same time that the common language appeared, the city of Vestia was founded. A powerful tiefling that ruled over Vestia assembled the powers of many dead gods for their own use. Using the power of these gods, the city rapidly progressed its technology ahead of the rest of the world. Vestia reached a point where it was able to safely traverse the astral sea to teleport itself to other planets and planes of existence. During its travels, it discovered an exotic fuel source in the astral sea that could be used in a wide variety of applications. This fuel source was widely used by the 4 cities surrounding Vestia on GALAMORA during the first millennium of Vestia. However, the fuel would wane in popularity during the second millennium. Not long after the city of Vestia was founded, its sister city, Silanoris, faced devastation. In the absence of their protector, Silanoris was left vulnerable to powerful entities such as gods and the grand dragons. During this period of war, the Prince of Silanoris was pulled into the Feywild by the goddess of nature. Here, Laverton's magic crowned him as the king of the Feywild and transformed him into a Wendigo. The slaughter he caused led to the fall of Silanoris and a flood of its residents joining Vestia. By the end of the first millennium, the fall of old Silanoris had been mostly forgotten, and a new settlement had been established under the same name. With the help of other powerful individuals, the tiefling that led Vestia succeeded in retrieving the lost powers of the gods. However, the tiefling's allies learned that the god of fate had not been trying to alter their reality. He was trying to erase it by merging all realities back together. It was also revealed that the tiefling had been using the powers of chaos to manipulate the lives of her allies in a bid to save their reality from the god of fate. When they realized they had been deceived, the god of fate appeared to them and sent them to alternate realities where all their desires were granted. Ultimately, they rejected his offers and battled the god of fate, severing his head and casting him into the depths of the realm of consciousness. The god of fate would be lost from the world for nearly a millennium after this point. Around the end of the second millennium after Vestia was founded, the god of fate returned to the material plane, attempting to finish the task he had failed nearly 1,000 years prior. Around the same time, the gods of life and death became more active within the world. Many religions across the world praised this as a sign of the gods returning to bring their blessings. But this was far from the truth. In reality, the god of fate had been transformed by a group of heroes whom he granted his powers to revive himself. During this metamorphosis, the god of fate's control over the weave was weakened, and his siblings, Moros and Averna, began to stir for the first time since the War of the Gods. Moros had begun reaching his influence into the material plane against the will of his brother Fate, establishing pacts, reviving the dead, and reincarnating the living without his sister Averna. The goddess Averna has not made her presence known, but the influence of her church has grown rapidly after she gained more influence over the weave. Natives of the Celestial Realm have noted that the Leviathan, said to be one of her most powerful creations, has begun stirring in the oceans of their realm. They have taken this as a sign of the end times. Now the balance of power in the world shifts between the three siblings as they grasp at their former power. The four sibling gods are by far the most powerful forces that have ever existed in GALAMORA. But powerful doesn't mean perfect. Their flaws led them to war, and their war altered the countless lives of mortals for the rest of time. The mortals that had to live in the aftermath would go on to rationalize the actions of their gods. Empires would do their best to learn from history, but in the end, much of it would be lost to time. As for the heroes that would step forth into the unknown, they would be the ones to forge the future of this world.